Donated items. We invite you to come to Red Bay. We had some carloads yesterday. I know it's a drive, but it'll be worth it. We have some things on sale here today to raise money for the museum. It all goes to our upkeep. We have some Tammy Wynette highway ornaments for sale. We're the only ones that sell them. And we have some photographs that I've made of Tammy through the years. She did 5 benefit concerts for us in Red Bay, and I was able to be in her home a few times and photographed her there along with the grandkids. So there's some good ones over there. But again, we invite you to come to Red Bay. If you have any items that you'd like to loan us, we can work out all the paperwork. We're a 501c3 organization, and it's not going to do any good in your closet. Nobody's going to see it. So think about loaning it to us, and we'll put it on display for everybody to see. So you'll have a good time today. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Scotty. At this time, where's Jan? Right there. Come on up, Jan. Georgette told me it was okay. I checked with the boss. Jan has something she wants to read. She received an email from Joan Dew, who co-authored Tammy's autobiography along with Tammy's Stand By Your Man. And Joan was unable to be here today, but she sent this to Jan. This is what she would have liked to have said had she been able to be here.
I'll read you the cover letter first. Jan, here's text. Feel free to edit or delete anything you think is boring, inappropriate, or whatever. I trust your judgment. Please emphasize how much I wanted to be there, and will be next year. God willing, and the creeks don't rise, even if I have to come on a stretcher. Please give hugs to all you know I would hug if I were there. Love and hugs, Joan Dew. Tammy Wynette from Joan Dew. The first time I saw Tammy Wynette perform was at a high school auditorium in Dothan, Alabama on a cold February night in 1975. The auditorium was packed, and the tension and anticipation in the room was palpable. This was the first time in 6 years Tammy would be performing solo. She and George Jones had just ended their marriage. And with it, the duet act that had made them the most celebrated, successful couple in the history of country music. Would the audience accept her along, love her as they had loved Tammy with George? Did she know? She was terrified to find out. Tammy told me later that when it was time for her to walk out on stage, that night her knees were shaking so badly she didn't know if she would be able to stand up to sing. She asked to have a stool put on the stage, so if she fell over she wouldn't fall far. I had met Tammy only a few days previously, and as yet did not know her well enough to know this was typical of her courage, or as those in her inner circle called her stubbornness. But it was easy to see she was nervous, for the way she looked at the audience with the expression of, okay, here I am, please accept me. Give me a chance. But she hadn't finished that first song when someone in the audience yelled out, "Where's George?" Tammy froze. She had no comeback. And she could feel the audience waiting for an answer. She gripped the microphone tighter and sang louder, trying to drown out the heckler. But he kept yelling, "Where's George? Where's George?" Finally, James Hawley walked up to the microphone and said, "She doesn't know where George is. Even George doesn't know where George is." The audience roared with laughter, the tension was broken, and the show was a standing ovation success. As you all know, James Hawley was Tammy's bass player and band leader. And I was to learn over the next 2.5 years I spent with Tammy, and he often saved the day or night when a crisis arose. I had been hired by publisher Simon & Schuster to write Tammy's autobiography. The process would require me to get Tammy to tell her life story on tape with as many details as she could remember. Then I would write the book from the transcribed tapes. The taping took a year. Tammy wasn't always in the mood to talk about her past and present life, and because when she was in love, which is almost always, she wanted to talk about him. Tammy was an obsessive romanticist. She was one of the most successful country music stars of all time, and yet she did not feel validated by her enormous success. What validated her was to be loved by a man she was in love with. And she fell in love easily frequently and wholeheartedly. The reason love let her down so often was because she had poor judgment in choosing who to fall in love with. She wanted the fairy tale kind of relationship with a perfect happy after ending, found only in fairy tales. At least, that's what she believed she wanted. Apart from being a bad judge of husband material, Tammy had many positive characteristics that made her as popular with women as she was with men. She liked having close women friends and enjoyed their company. Let's go shopping, she'd say. Or let's take the bus and the kids and drive to Florida and hang out on the beach. Florida meant her oceanfront home on exclusive Jupiter Beach, her favorite getaway place, which also happened to be very near the ranch of Burt Reynolds. Tammy was generous to a fault, both with family and friends. She delighted in giving expensive gifts and helping out when a relative or close friend was having financial trouble, or even just in the luxury of spending. She once asked me to go with her to buy new living room furniture. Her old living furniture was not yet a year old. But she was off for a month, a very unusual occurrence. She was bored. I was about to get my first lesson in TW shopping style. We went to one of Nashville's largest furniture stores, and of course, she was immediately recognized. The salesman was beside himself with the possibility not only of making a big sale, but of being in the close proximity to Tammy Wynette. I'm here to buy a new living room furniture, she told him, but there are conditions. It has to be delivered today. The man stuttered, not knowing if that would be possible. It was already afternoon. But he said, it will be delivered if I have to rent a truck and bring it myself. One of the many perks of being a celebrity. We spent the next hours wandering the store, with Tammy pointing out the items she wanted. She made quick decisions, and she never once asked the price of anything. She purchased over $15,000 worth of furniture that afternoon, opened her purse, and paid cash for it, and gave the salesman a $100 tip for his trouble. Tammy and I became close friends, and I treasured the fact that she trusted me, a Hollywood entertainment journalist, with information she would never have wanted to see in print. Once we were sitting up in front of her bus watching television, and she reached over and put her hand on my wrist, squeezed it, and said out of the blue, "I love you, John Dude." It touched my heart because I knew at that moment she truly meant it. This is a spiritual philosophy that declares every human being has 3 deaths. 1, when the body dies. 2, when the body is laid to rest, either burial or cremation. And 3, when enough time has passed that there's no longer anyone alive who remembers that person. Being forgotten is the final death, because as long as your memory is kept alive, you are not truly dead. By this definition, Tammy Wynette will be with us for generations to come, not just through her music, but also because she was years before her time as a woman, who accomplished the sheer pinnacle of career success and did it through sheer determination. Of course, the talent was there. When everyone around her, family and friends alike, were telling her she was crazy to think she could come to Nashville and be a country music star, she was standing in a cotton field in Tupelo, Mississippi, already envisioning what she'd wear on stage when she sang with her idol, George Jones. Yes, Virginia, dreams do come true.
Thank you so much, Jen. And I wasn't being disrespectful of Jan standing there. Jan actually asked me to stick by for moral support and emotional support. Thank you so much, Jan. Tell Joan, Tammy never will be forgotten. Martha Detweiler. Are you ready, hon? I could have given you some warning, though. You know.
We all need moral support. This is kind of a shaky thing to do, to tell a memory. That was all Karen asked me to do, was to say a little memory. I have one or two that are kind of particular to Tammy. One of them was prior to Thanksgiving, and I can't remember the year. She called me and she said, I'm in Cardiff, Wales, and I want to do Thanksgiving for everybody in the band, which meant she wanted to cook. And I was in Nashville, and she said, can you come and bring 10 pounds of cornmeal? I said, yes. You want me to get on a plane, go to Cardiff, Wales with 10 pounds of cornmeal and some cranberries, she said. I said, okay, I'll go. And so my friend and her friend, Betty Burnell, and I got on a plane, flew to London, got on a train, went to Cardiff, and when we got there, we unloaded our cornmeal and our cranberries, and Tammy went down to the kitchen and tried to talk the chef into letting us have the kitchen to cook in the next couple of days. Well, they just made such fun of us. They said, well, we can do it. We'll do it. And of course, they don't have Thanksgiving in Great Britain. They don't know what cornbread stuffing is, and they don't know what sweet potatoes with marshmallows are. And so they finally agreed that they would let us have the kitchen. And we had a Rolls Royce to go to the grocery store in. And a chauffeur. And Tammy's European manager, Richard Gillinson. And we had all these lists. And she would divide the list up and gave one to Betty, one to me, one to Richard, one to Richie, one for her. And the chauffeur pulled us up to the front of the grocery store. And we went in. And I just thought, this is shopping. This is shopping rich. This is shopping famous. This is shopping. And we got there and realized we didn't have sweet potatoes. But they had something called African yams. And the African yams are white. And I was kind of worried about this. I could just see presenting these band boys with this white pie, sweet potato pie, and they wouldn't know what was going on there. And so Tammy and I talked about it, and she said, we can fix that. Well, you know, Tammy's kind of famous for fixing up her food with food coloring. And so she got red food coloring and yellow food coloring and made sweet potatoes out of those yams. And nobody knew any different. It looked just right. Her European manager and I got so into this thing that we went shopping in these little streets in Cardiff looking for Tammy a French maid outfit so she could serve her dinner in a French maid outfit. And we couldn't find anything. So finally we found a little doily made out of cotton thread and a little apron. And we bought those. And we took them back, and she just got the biggest kick out of it. She plopped that thing on her head and stuck a bobby pin through there and was just going right on with the program. She was going to be the French maid. And she frisked around in the kitchen, and the chef was laughing at us, and Richie was in there messing up the mess. And we finally got it cooked. And we went upstairs to this private room, and she did serve. She served everybody. And it was the sweetest Thanksgiving I think I've ever spent. It was so far away from home, very near Plymouth, where the original Pilgrims had set out for the United States. And it was the most heartfelt, sweet gift of her own soul to all those band members and entourage. And I was so happy to be a part of it and to have delivered my 10 pounds of cornmeal. And, you know, Tammy and I, when you talk about memories, food is right there on the top of her list because she was so good in the kitchen. She could make anything and remember how to make it. She didn't use a recipe, so when you ask her, how did you make that, Tammy? She'd just say, well, you do this and you do that, you put some of this in, and when it looks like that, then it's ready. And one day, I don't know if the man that used to work in her yard was here last year, and I don't know if he remembers this, but she planted mustard in her flower bed so that we could have Hoover hay. And if you don't know what Hoover hay is, you'd have to be born in Mississippi to know, probably. But it's a green salad made up of real young mustard greens and green onions and bacon grease, hot bacon grease drizzled over the top. And she called me one morning, she said, the mustard's ready. And so we had Hoover hay. But that's all the remembrance that I can think of right now, but I should have prepared better. Jan's was so nice. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Martha. You did absolutely wonderful. We all love hearing stories regarding Tammy that we otherwise would have no way of knowing. If you could give me just a few minutes here, I think I know what we're going to move forward with, but I want to make sure everybody's ready. I'll be right back.